It's been a roller coaster, but you stayed. And now I'm taking over for the day. Cause I can be what you wanna be. And I can feel but you lie for me. Take me to a place I'm calling for. Open up the doors I'm knocking on. I'm losing control. Be the one to leave my fantasy. Show you crave your hands all over me. No, I'll never let go. Cause now I'm falling for love. Now I'm falling for love. Now I'm falling for you. Now I'm falling for love. Now I'm falling for love. Now I'm falling for you. And I'm losing my mind for the days. Cause you and I will never fade. And I could be what you wanna be. And I can feel but you lie for me. Take me to a place I'm calling for. Open up the doors I'm knocking on. No, I'm losing control. Be the one to leave my fantasy. Show you crave your hands all over me. No, I'll never let go. Cause now I'm falling for love. I'm falling now. I'm falling for love. Cause now I'm falling for love. Now I'm falling for love. Now I'm falling for you. Cause now I'm falling for love. Now I'm falling for love. Now I'm falling for you. Cause now I'm falling for love. Now I'm falling for love. Now I'm falling for you.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to Virgan Radio Service. I'm your host, Grant Magic of the Virgan Republic. Today with me I have the Imperator of Cayania. How are you today, sir?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Excellent. Correction, I am not the Imperator. I am merely the Supreme Chancellor of the Imperial Union of Cayania.
Okay.
Have not been filled quite yet, unfortunately.
And tell us a little bit more about this role, because I actually didn't know about this.
The Imperial Union is organized in such a way that the idea is that monarchies are problematic in and of themselves because you vest a great deal of power, if not sole absolute power, to one monarch, that being, in our case, an emperor or an empress. At this point, we would just name them imperial executive whenever referring to them without a gender role. But as soon as we elect someone, they would be emperor or empress, depending on what their assigned gender is. And the other two positions are primarily there to check the power of this monarch. We have written that the Supreme Chancellor is largely Director of Foreign Affairs for the nation. They would be in charge of diplomacy. They would be in charge of the military, if we were to ever develop one. As of right now, we don't have an armed forces. And then there's the president, who is largely director of domestic affairs within the nation.
Okay. And Tell me, why was Cayania founded?
Well, it initially started as just myself, a sort of childhood dream, and like I said before the video started, delusions of grandeur when I was 12 years old. And from there, I sort of shared it with other people. And at first, it was just my friends at school and middle school and elementary and middle school. And we just sort of had fun with it. I was the leader and all this other stuff. But come and go with years. It depended largely on who I talked to, who I was friends with, who. But it was just largely a playful thing, not really anything to be taken serious in any way.
Okay. And how does Cayania's government function?
Well, as I alluded to in the beginning, it has three executives, a sort of triumvirate based on the model of Rome, but instead of them having equal powers, they would have respective powers that they are responsible for, such as the domestic affairs of the president and then the external affairs of the supreme chancellor, in that case being me. And then above that, there would be the imperial executive, again, an emperor or an empress, who would coordinate the other two branches within the executive branch. But other than that, it largely functions somewhat like a combination of the United States bicameral Congress and Parliament with the legislative branch. And then there's a Supreme Court, but we do not have enough citizens to fill those roles. So far, it's just the Senate and myself.
Alright. And what ideology does Cayania follow?
We're very, well, not very, but we are right wing. It's no secret to anyone that we are a majority right wing micronation. We hold traditional viewpoints such as basing our laws on aspects of the Bible, aspects of traditional morals and whatnot. But we're also moderate enough to, for example, we're not going to burn the heretics, for example.
Yeah.
Or any sort of thing like that. We're right wing, but for lack of a better term, tolerant.
Okay. Now, what has Cayania accomplished so far?
So far, we've acquired more citizens. At the beginning in May, it was just myself and a couple other of my friends, but we've since expanded the citizen base to about 16 people, myself and several others. Pardon me again. We've finally written a constitution. We established an actual legal system, and other than that, it's just been largely on the books and largely document related activity.
Alright, and what does Cayania hope to achieve in its future? What's its goals and its aspirations?
We hope to achieve a more serious, larger role within the micronational community. There's been talks between myself and a couple other of the senators to design a city, and so far it's just been relegated to a couple of drawings and here and there. Something like that as a settlement.
Alright. Do you think this idea of a settlement or a city could be accomplishable? Do you think it could be a reality one day for Cayania?
It would be very difficult to achieve for obvious reasons because cities cost millions, if not billions of dollars, even for the smallest ones, especially considering everything that needs to go into them to function in the present day, plumbing, electricity, a police force, and people to run it, and people to keep it powered. So it would be very difficult to achieve, if not outright impossible, with the current resources that we have. But we hope that in the future we would expand, receive support for the funding of such a project.
All right. And what infrastructure does Cayania currently have, or is it in the works of building something like a garden or a factory or even a garden shed?
We haven't really built anything so far. Our infrastructure mainly consists of going to the territories that we currently claim and sort of cleaning them up, picking up trash. We would wave our flag around a certain area. All in all, it's mostly maintenance of places that we claim.
Alright. Now, I'm gonna move on to your thoughts of the community, and so what are your current thoughts on the state of the current micronational community?
Conflicts, you said?
Well, what your thoughts on the current state of the micronational community?
Actually, like James of House of Mithras had mentioned previously, there's a lot of shifting, there's a lot of change, and what's the term? Dynamic action going on within it.
Yeah. Something along those lines.
Starting to move away from. I'm sorry.
Something along those lines.
One more time. I'm sorry. The that of people at the time maybe playing into any ideas that they had to a bit like, look at me, I have this country, I have this kingdom, I have this empire, so on and so forth, such as with President Kevin Baugh of Molossia. But then for the years that more people are starting to create them in response to their local governments. Failures that they would encounter with their local governments, such as with Cayania. Before, when we started to take a serious turn, we started off as a childhood dream. It just was entirely playful. But then it became something a bit more serious than that, in response to the current presidency and in response to the previous presidency, such as that with President Trump's actions.
Right. Okay. And does Cayania have any cooperation and any alliances and micronational organizations to date?
The one that we joined most recently that I can think of off the top of my head was the Almolia Pact, but that had since dissolved. Have any goals or objectives to achieve? But other than that, we haven't really joined any particular groups of alliances. We find them sort of counterintuitive.
And why do you find these organizations and alliances counterintuitive?
Because mainly because the organizations would end up being focused largely on bolstering the prestige of one particular micronation. For example, say I'm not going to name anyone in particular. That would not be fair to any micronation out there. Say country A decides to form an alliance and it's a defensive alliance or something like that. That to me seems a bit pretentious. It would be naming yourself as this sort of protector of other micronations. But if it's something like a trade alliance or something like that, it'd be more understandable. Creating a group to help other micronations out and not being tied to any one.
Alright. And what could the community do to advance in the current world and your thoughts?
To advance, there would have to be a reduction of infighting that I've noticed in the community. Not micronational war per se, that's been largely reduced, if not outright extinguished from the community so far, but conflicts of interest have been happening pretty often within the community, and those more wary of micronations, they make them more worried about how the community carries itself, whether it's just this force of being flippant and stating, having delusions of grandeur, and rather than a force of good and a force of benevolence.
Unfortunately, though, there is a lot of infighting, and there has been a lot of bickering the last few days.
Yes.
I have unfortunately succumbed to the temptation of bickering with none other than Empress Haya of Cayania, as unfortunately she doesn't get the point of running her own nation instead of choosing to involve herself in her own, and that does kind of annoy me. Unfortunately, she doesn't want to listen to anyone. It does get a little bit weary and annoying after a while, and I feel like I've finally had enough, and a fuse is blown with her, and a lot of other micronations are now speaking out against her because of the amount of bullshit that comes out her mouth. What?
I'm sorry?
What's your thought on this whole Hania conflict right now?
Goodness.
In fact, we won't call it a conflict. We'll call it a conflict of interest.
Yes, that would be more appropriate. I don't think this is really a belligerent conflict that's escalating into anything resembling micronational war. That is, thankfully, that has not been the case with Hania. It's a cardinal sin, really, to have war within the micronational community, because it just makes us look silly. It makes us look ridiculous, and as James has said, it's disrespectful to veterans, and it's disrespectful to men and women that have actually been in conflict when a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old would say, oh, we had war, when in reality it was just an internet argument. In the case of Cayania, it really is a conflict of interest. There's a lot of, I don't know if this is true or not, but from what I have observed and what places like the Kingdom of Sidera and the Kaiserreich of Westlake have noticed, is that the vast majority of micronations are left-leaning in some way, or at least in the center or something around those lines. There's not that many of them that are right-wing, because they unfortunately have the turning fascist, which is, like I said, it is unfortunate that some of these right-wing micronations would turn fascist. Like, for example, the debacle with Ethan a few months ago, or yeah, that was his name. Sorry.
Are you talking about Ethan Brown?
Sorry?
Are you talking about Ethan Brown?
Yeah, that was a few months ago. We've since then let that go, and
I don't think there's been any.
We appreciate that.
sorry, you speak first.
Oh, yeah, we're actually quite glad that he's turned largely away from that and has listened to the concerns of the community, which is any nation that can accomplish that, no matter what its form of government or what its form of government, is a very adaptable nation that I can envision. Sorry about that. Envision lasting for years or lasting for a while.
Um, what does Cayania hope to achieve within the community?
We hope to increase our presence within not just within the community but within the greater world. Because so far our entire micronation is only based in Texas, and you would see some micronations that are spread out across the entire world and various territories and sometimes even pieces of space. But I digress. We just hope to expand our presence within the community, within the world, and to be able to garner enough resources to actually create an impact on those who are less fortunate and those who are dissatisfied with their current governments.
Alright. This has been a particularly short episode, so we're gonna move on to live audience question time. If you got any questions, audience, please type it in the chat log below, and we'll be sure to answer any questions very soon. Try to think something to say. I'm not so yeah, has Cayania done anything to like maybe cement itself in the community a bit more? Excuse me.
Oh, bless you. In terms of cementing ourselves within the community, we've spent a lot of time reaching out to some of the larger micronations that people think of. We've sent term is for Twitter, but we've sent a friend request to Molossia. We've sent friend requests to Slabovia and other micronations, such as those that are going to be attending MicroCon within this year of July. Most of our way of cementing our role within the community is communicating with the various micronations that we follow on Twitter, communicating with other ones, being able to share our ideas and the ideas of other micronations. We appreciate the work that some micronations do for others. For example, I really do like the House of Mithras creating a institute for the matter.
Yeah.
And there's also Justin of Gondania, or I'm not sure how it's pronounced. The Empire of Gondania.
Yeah, go. Let me see if I can remember how to pronounce it. Guanduania.
Yeah.
So it's a really
Appreciate the.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's a really long, complicated name.
But we try to pronounce their names correctly. But we appreciate what their emperor does as well. They have a farm. They have a small church that they've built on their own funding and largely crowdfunding. But it's are well received by us because those are tasks that we would like to accomplish as well, to be able to make an impact on the world around ours and the community around our nation and sorry, the state of Texas if possible.
Well, you should definitely try to see if you can raise money to buy land or something, or something along those lines. You could also claim land and build on it. As far as I'm aware, it's not illegal to claim land within the region of America. But you should
We're very wary about. I'm sorry.
yeah, you go first.
We're very wary about claiming land though because we have to actually, in my view at least, we have to actually have a presence on that land to be able to, for example, claim it. For example, we'd have to either own it or at least maintain it or have some sort of garrison on it in some way.
Perhaps. So, there anything else that Cayania is currently doing within the regions within itself to maybe give itself a brighter future and make it continue a little bit longer?
Yeah, we've been working on a citizenship program, such as creating little quizzes and tests about for citizens. Maybe start issuing passports for those who are interested in joining the nation, for lack of a better term. Wish to be able to expand the the citizen base so that we'd be able to have more a increased presence around the community that we could use to largely clean up parks, current schools, and help out at our respective areas. We're largely based in the Dallas Fort Worth area in Texas, so and then maybe reach out to any other micronations that might be in the state of Texas.
Alright. It's the Westlake, I believe, is located in Texas at the moment.
Yes, but they're all. I'm sorry.
It's nothing. Continue.
Sorry?
Continue.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Let's. They're pretty far away. I believe they're in Westlake, which is just outside of Austin, which is quite a few hours from any of our nearest settlements, so to speak. Maybe when the opportunity is there, we could go down and have a former or formal discussion, or maybe an embassy of sorts.
Okay. So, anything else that you would like to speak about while you're here?
Anything that. There's. I may have drifted off during the mention of infighting within the community.
Yeah.
It, uh, it is worrying. It is a bit worrying to notice the amount of infighting that's within some members of the community, such as those every scuffle that I've seen on Twitter with Hania and their empress and their well, not their form of government, their oh goodness, they're almost bot like.
Yeah.
Stop Trump's tweets, basically.
See, that's my point.
Yeah, it's
No one would care if it's once or twice, but the fact is, it goes on and on and on and on, and people are starting to get really annoyed with it and really quite frankly tired of seeing it. And the excuse that she poses up as do you know what? I actually can't remember her excuse, but every time someone questions her on the matter, she'll either stay completely silent and never comment on the thread again, or what she will do is say, if you don't like me and my politics, please mute or block me. I don't really think that's an acceptable response for that kind of thing, because the micronational community within itself is democratic. Everyone's voice deserves to be heard, including hers. As annoying as it is, it does deserve to be listened to and heard. But when you're chanting the same thing over and over and over, people are bound to stop listening after a while and get annoyed with the same things. It is absolutely flabbergasting for me to think how she could use the excuse, oh, just block or mute me, because that's, for a start, it's not fair on her and it's not fair on the rest of us.
It's quite, like I mentioned before, with some of us micronations that are right wing in any way. I notice a lot of tweets that promote, like, for example, left leaning ideologies, or heaven forbid, very far left leaning ideologies, such as those that have no tolerance for any other idea or any other thing that is slightly to the middle or to the right of the middle. And it's with Hania, they have, oh goodness, how many? Over 15,000 followers, of which I think two or three people that agree with them have argued with me with regards to any disagreements I had with them.
It is unfortunate that a lot of people do buy into a sorry excuse for a leadership, and so it's not good enough anymore. And that's just the way it is. The infighting will continue as long as she continues to walk down the road that she is walking down, which is the road of no one being interested in her anymore. Because even though I'm talking bad about her on here right now, Hania is something that could be achievable. And it is unfortunate to...
Yeah, they have...
Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, they have the sheer number of followers that back them. They could very easily use that as a force for good. With all 16 of us within the Imperial Union here, we're able to send out a person or two to help clean up a park, or even myself, I would go to clean up the park that's right here where I live. Come to pick up trash, and maybe the university that I currently attend in the city of Arlington, and have discussions with people there and be able to join some student groups that we could also partake in. 16 of us, and not all of us really act all that much within the government. But with Hania, they have, like I said, tens of thousands of followers, and it seems so disappointing to see that they have that level of support and they're not using it for anything greater than rallying people to grow increasingly angry at the presidency. Angry at anyone that decides or has the gall to disagree with them. And it's just unfortunate, because I see potential in them. I see a language that they're trying to form, and that's interesting. And I see all the plans that they have for their nation sort of just be put on the shelf for one man.
I feel like what it's turned into for her is as a borderline obsession. Which is unfortunate, because usually people who have obsessions, it's really, really hard to get them to stop with that obsession or that addiction. And right now her obsession or her addiction is commenting on every single thing that Trump will tweet. It's a waste of effort because he'll never see them. It's a waste of energy as well, and it's a waste of overall our own time. She does. She did make the comment earlier on Twitter that instead of me spending my valuable time doing what I want to do, I'm instead arguing with you idiots or something along those lines. And I had to burst out laughing at that because
That's exactly what she's.
Her time is spent arguing with a person who will never even think to notice Hania. Never even think to comment back, or never even think to even look on her profile. It's bewildering, and it's just absolutely hilarious. Alright, Animal Encounters ask opinions on socialist micronations.
Opinions on socialist micronations. We sort of we did start out, part of our nation's history did start out with a bit of anti-socialist sentiments, thinking that it was a pure force of evil, but that has largely shifted in the past few years with regards to socialism. We see it more as a sort of necessary, not really a necessary evil, but sort of a ideology of emergency. It works when a nation is either in a crisis or just about to come out of a crisis or about to go enter a crisis with regards to finances, with regards to the people, the well-being of the people within that nation. I mean, if you take a look at the United States during the presidency of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, it was a socialist nation. Whether the people there wanted to admit it or not, they were socialist. And it wasn't because they didn't want to have any sort of economic freedom, but because the economy was in such shambles and there were so many people out of a job that the government had to expand its power in response, because the local charities and the local shelters didn't have the resources available to them because they too were going bankrupt. So our opinion on socialist micronations, we don't think that socialism is some sort of cancer on the community, but socialism is better suited to dealing with a crisis than it is as a enduring presence, in our opinion.
I hope that answers your question, Animal Encounters. There have been no more questions, and it's getting to the time now where it's time to close off and finish. So I thank you very much for your time tonight. It's been a pleasure. In fact, also, Animal Encounters asks, also, opinions on religion over state and vice versa.
Opinions of religion on a state. Well, our state, as I mentioned before, has laws that are based on the Christian Bible and has laws that are based on both the Old and New Testaments of said Bible. And in the micronation are perfectly fine, and having a sort of for example, a Christian identity or a Muslim identity or a Jewish identity to a micronation is they're all acceptable, but as long as you're able to, for example, not persecute anyone who practices a different faith than the one that is represented at the forefront of your nation. Like there are for example, there's the Byzantine Empire from a couple thousand years ago, and they were a nation that held Christianity to good emphasis, but they also allowed practice of Islam. They allowed the practice of Judaism. They allowed practice of other religions that were within the area. It's really our opinion on the matter of religion within a nation.
Alright, okay. I hope that answers your other question, animal encounters. Right, as I was saying before the surprise question, it is time to finish off now. I thank you for your time tonight, everyone, including yourself. It's been good having you on. And join us.
It was a pleasure to be on here.
Yeah. Join us next week when we will have on the is it West Springfield? Yeah, well, we're gonna have West Springfield on next week, so join us then for that, and thanks very much for tuning in tonight.